Hi, I'm James Kautz. I am here with the short film The Bottom this year. I'm also on the jury for the shorts. My short, Frankie, won the Big Shorts Prize last year.
Let's start with that, because I really loved Frankie, and it is becoming now is an award-winning short. When I saw it, it was just premiering. Can you tell me a bit about the team you have in building these things and creating this work, and a little bit of how, like, Frankie kind of got kicked off? It's an interesting short, but it's also, I think, an interesting story of how you guys make your films, your team.
Yeah, so my background is in theater. I created off-Broadway theater for almost 2 decades, and so I just kind of amassed just a lovely group of artists who knew how to collaborate and kind of hold space and create work, and many of those folks kind of traveled with me as I started making films.
Can you share the name? Because I love the name of your off-Broadway.
The theater company was called The Amoralists, and it focused really on kind of the moral ambiguity of certain characters and certain choices. And I'm actually no longer producing theater. I've moved from New York to Los Angeles and kind of focus exclusively on films now. But all of that kind of collaborative ethos has gone into Red Seed Films, which is my little production company with my spouse Morgan. And our first film was Frankie, and Morgan produced Frankie and played Frankie in the film. And, you know, the story was super personal. My spouse was coming out as trans, non-binary at the time, and I was also in a men's Al-Anon group for the first time in my life, and we found all these kind of really interesting commonalities with our experiences. Just this idea that certain folks kind of hide who they really are to make others feel safe, whether you're a child of an alcoholic or you're someone who's kind of wrestling with being seen for the gender that they actually are. That commonality became the core of Frankie, and we leaned hard on our artist community to kind of come in and help us make it, and it was a genuine labor of love and super scary and vulnerable, and yeah, we brought it to Tallgrass, and the reception was pretty incredible.
From a rural community, they not only got it, they embraced it.
Yeah.
The Bottom's a very different film, but still moral judgment is being played. Granted, with a shotgun, but
and a naked guy in the water, but
well, not in particular, a certain naked guy. Where did this idea come from then? And since Frankie was Morgan, now you're in front of the camera. Was that ever a thought process, or is this how it came about?
It just came out really organically. Morgan co-directed The Bottom with me. They are still in Los Angeles with our little pit bull puppy. They're holding down the fort. They couldn't come this time, but you know, it was written kind of in the heart of COVID, which I suspect you're probably hearing a lot of this year. We were kind of staying south of Buffalo, super cold winters, and I just kind of kept having this image of these 2 men on the shoreline, kind of in some sort of a guttural reckoning after years of friendship. And I wasn't quite sure what the relationship was, and I started realizing, like, not to spoil the movie, but I slowly but surely realized that it was an allegory for an intervention, which again, that kind of thematic seed was in Frankie as well. I think it kind of lives in all my work, whether I'm aware of it or not, this idea of recovery. And so I just started writing, and I had no idea kind of what it was going to be, and Morgan really helped me go, like, oh, I think this is maybe what you're wrestling with, and then we brought in a few folks from New York. We were staying, like I said, south of Buffalo. We brought a few folks from New York up to help us shoot it, but then we just also sourced a ton of local crew, and we filmed it 5 or 6 hours over a cold day.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of interaction between them. There's a lot of cuts between the both of you. Wow, I didn't expect 5 hours. Okay. I want to talk about the cold.
Cool.
We literally see the moment when you are thrust forward and then back into the water. We literally see the smoke rising from you. It's so cold. You're obviously shivering. How cold was it? It looked. I did not want to be anywhere near where the hell you guys were.
It was cold. I mean, I prepared for it. Like, I kind of loved preparing for it. I would do
ice baths. How do you prepare for it?
Ice baths and polar plunges. I would jump in like Lake Erie and stuff. My preparation was way worse than the water actually was. So, but it was cold. It was definitely cold. I think maybe we were in mid-30s when we got there. I don't know what the water was, but I was safe. I felt like I was safe. But I didn't have to act.
Fully submerged is scary. I was worried about you. I'd love to get to the title. I think it gets obviously to what you're talking about on a bigger scale. Hitting that point is obviously important for anyone going through that struggle. How important is it to talk about that moment that you need to hit a certain bottom to kind of even begin to start to recover or move on or do anything?
Yeah. I think, hitting bottom has such a connotation with substance abuse, but I think it's more than that. I think in any relationship where there's, abuse or power dynamics that maybe aren't healthy or a level of toxicity, I think inevitably we have to hit our bottom, our okay, enough is enough moment. And usually those aren't nice and enjoyable. Usually they're pretty painful. And a lot of folks ask after they see the movie, well, who is hitting bottom? Is it Jude, who I play, who goes back in the water? Or is it John, who's on the shore with the shotgun? And I think, everyone can make their own decision, but I think both. That's the thing. Usually in these relationships, both people hit bottom. Whether you stay there and learn and grow, or you go back to the way you were before, that's everyone's story is different. But that's the core of the story, that hitting bottom. And metaphorically in this film, that means going back into terrifying, icy, cold, freezing water where maybe there's a monster under the water, or maybe there's not. Maybe you're the monster under the water.
That question is at the beginning and is also the very end. I don't want to reveal who the person is after you, but I loved the choice of that relationship. I think that's a very powerful relationship with what you're talking about. The way parents can impact us. How much of importance was it to show that both characters are going through this and not just your character, to understand with the reveal of what John is doing, it opens up so much about everyone may be going through this, even if they're not aware of it or lost amongst their whatever John's thoughts are. How important is it to show everyone may need this moment of figuring out in their life? Otherwise, they may never question or understand what is in the water. Yeah. What is at the bottom. And if you don't even get to that point, you may never even ask the question. And then that's an important question for so many people. I thought it was a very powerful film. I went away with it with my own thoughts on that and my own struggles. And I didn't think I was going to see that in a short.
I'm really glad. Thank you. Yeah, I think as we start on this process of maybe, disengaging from an abusive relationship, I think oftentimes most of us step back and realize oh, I played a part in this, whether I was aware of it or not, and everyone else in my life played a part in it, whether they are their own kind of abusive or toxic relationship where they just enabled it, or that's the thing about being human. Like, our relationships don't live in a silo. Like, we are who we are with everyone. And I think, maybe to spoil the ending a little bit, like once John kind of is able to let go of Jude, realizing like, oh, the dynamics of this relationship also exist with me and my father and me and everyone else in my life, which is daunting, but also I think part of, again, recovery, part of healing. It's never just one person. It's you and everyone that you interact with.
It's one of the steps of,
Yeah.
I love that. I want to ask about being a juror and what you get to. That's a unique power, because you were seeing very much people in the same exact spot you were, but also seeing material that is, especially with shorts, outside of the film festival circuit, they may not get as much life to their film. So it's important that someone like a juror recognize it. And I think for a lot of filmmakers, the jury is a very close-knit group. And that you guys get to interact with these filmmakers during the festival. How much of a cool experience is it to be on that side of things?
It's honestly one of the coolest things I've ever done. For real. I mean, it was a lot of movies. I think it was like 100 shorts. And I mean this genuinely. Like, it would have been easier if more of them were bad. Like, none of them were bad. Like, they were all good. And then there were a few that were exceptional, and exceptional because they were my personal taste, but my fellow jurors found other films exceptional because it appealed to their personal tastes. It's really hard. And I mean, it's a testament to Tallgrass and the programming team. Like, it was hard. And like, I'd watch a movie and then immediately I'd want to know who this director was and what else have they done. So it's not just watching 100 movies. It's like learning who these people are too, because you're affected emotionally by their films. It was a masterclass in filmmaking. Just watching how people told their stories, and it's clear that every one of the films, this meant everything to the filmmaker. So it's a great honor. I felt very lucky to do it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How important is the film festival circuit, in particular the regional circuit like Tallgrass? Obviously the Sundances and the Torontos are there for their reasons, but something like Tallgrass that isn't a place where a distributor would come, it's a different feel. It's a filmmaker-based festival. I'm curious, what are your thoughts and feelings of festivals like Tallgrass? And also, being someone who has been the recipient of praise from a festival like this, how did that impact you as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I mean, we were very fortunate. We're still kind of in the midst of our festival run with The Bottom, but for Frankie, we were fortunate to go to some bigger festivals, some more destination type festivals. And I think, being able to reflect on that now, like Tallgrass was like maybe the most important festival that we went to. Everyone is important in their own way, but regional festivals like this, God bless you. Regional festivals like this, where there's clearly so much time and care put into caring for not only the films, but the filmmakers, like, it just radiates across everyone who attends, and like the ability to connect with other filmmakers and connect with other, producers. It's genuine in a way that the bigger festivals, I think, can't quite replicate. I think the relationships that I made last year and I'm making this year are so much more genuine and real. There's like real time and care that can kind of go into them. I think it's incredibly valuable for a filmmaker. It has been for me, for sure.
So I know you just stated that you're still on the festival circuit with The Bottom. I'm curious, creatively, is there anything you can share with us that's down the line for you, Morgan, your team, anyone involved that we can anticipate, or are you solely focused on this run right now?
No, I should be. I'm like addicted to making work. I mean, everyone's goal is to like just do this and nothing else, because it's genuine magic. We have 2 more shorts kind of scheduled for production. We're shooting one on last week in October, and then one more in the spring. And then we've grown Frankie into a feature. So the script is done, and we're kind of talking to different producers, and the goal would be to make a feature in the next couple of years, and which is a totally different beast than shorts, but also, you know, we want to bring that sensibility.
Would you co-direct again?
I think Morgan would act, and I would direct. Yeah, but everybody also kind of directs on these things. You know, everybody has great ideas, and so I'm sure they'll have a lot of input.
Filming wise, would you, because now you've made the switch, or would you look to film it all back in New York or LA? Or somewhere else? I mean, anywhere. Yeah.
You know, the story of Frankie the feature is set in a more rural kind of America, and I wrote it with Pennsylvania in mind, kind of near where we shot The Bottom, which is a little bit more blue collar, rural. That's where I come from. Like, I grew up south of Buffalo, so like it's kind of set there. But the fun part is like, I mean, I've been walking around Wichita all week, and I'm like, all I want to do is film something here, make something here. Like, especially walking through this building today, I'm like, oh my God, what could we make here? But I suspect it'll be maybe more east.
With your theater background and how good you are in this, I'm curious, do you prefer behind or in front of camera?
I think writing and directing is like my true passion, and it took me a long time to get there. I think, you know, there's very little agency you have as an actor. You have to work really hard to be cast in projects that hit you in the heart and in the gut. And those are few and far between, honestly. And I think there's something really special about making your own stuff, and even more vulnerable and scary, which is also special. So I don't really think about acting like I used to or pursue it. And strangely, I'm getting more offers to be an actor now. So, you know, it's its own paradigm.
Growing up in Buffalo, I'm curious, what film inspirations, what film memories do you have? Or maybe theater, because I know theater was such a big part of your life. What kind of sparked you to get down this road? What were the films or plays you were able to see?
You know, I came to it really late. I thought I was going to be like a painter. So I've always been a visual thinker and feeler. But my senior year in high school, my English teacher kind of went off script and made us read Shakespeare out loud, and we were all, you know, mortified. But, you know, my parents were kind of going through a divorce at the time, and I was not all right, as, you know, emotionally at that time, and it felt really good to like read this stage play out loud. And he pulled me aside after class, and he was like, I think you should consider doing this. And he was an old actor turned English teacher, and he really kind of took me under his wing in that moment. And I was like, I watched movies and kind of knew somewhere in my brain that like, oh, these are actors doing a job, but I didn't care enough to really think like, oh, that's an actual profession. I just watched a movie. And so that was the first time I started thinking like, oh, I kind of want to do that. So it came much later. I think most people I meet are like, yeah, I was in like my first musical when I was 7, and I'm like, we didn't even have a drama program at my school, so.
It's amazing this is your career. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, as far as attending festivals, can you explain the fun of them for people that don't understand that this is kind of a blast? You're getting to show your work, but also the camaraderie of the people you're going to get to interact with, like at the parties and these screenings themselves.
Yeah. I mean, as artists, and I think especially writers and filmmakers, like, we're all socially anxious little goobers. Like, when you get us all in a room and you kind of give us the parameters to start geeking out about films and stories, like, we all get to be socially awkward goobers together, and that is really magical. I think it's really funny to feel the group or an audience before a screening and then feel the energy afterwards. Like, that's the power of film. Like, you know, we share in this kind of communal experience of a story that connects us on an emotional level and an intellectual level. And then we're just kind of set loose to go have a party, like literally in the street last night, and just talk about, you know, work, talk about stories, which inevitably become conversations about ourselves. And I mean, you come for the films, you come to share your work, but ultimately it's all about the people and who you meet. And like, I think the idea of networking, you know, is really scary and really foreign and very cold and calculating, but it's not that, especially at a film festival like Tallgrass. It's so genuine, geeking out with other people about movies and about work. I think that's what the festival is honestly all about.
Well, James, I was really blown away by your short. I really appreciate you coming in and having a conversation, and thank you. Thank you for coming back as a juror and making Tallgrass an important place. I think Tallgrass really enjoyed your work, and we will continue to do that.
I can't wait to come back.
Awesome.